Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final webinar in the series for the 38th Annual Chemphil Winter Woodlot Conference. My name is Olivia Foster, and I've been the moderator of this year's series. Today, we're looking forward to hearing from Val Deziel about grassland restoration. Once again, we'd like to thank the sponsors you can see on the screen, as well as the planning committee, especially Dorothy Hamilton, Jim Hendry, and Martin Straight, and the speakers for sharing their knowledge with us. Before we dive in, I'll just share a few words about the Eastern Ontario Model Forest, or the EOMF, which is a charitable organization that works with government, landowners, industry, First Nation, NGOs, and plenty of other groups in the industry to develop new ways to sustain and manage our forest resources. The EOMF recently joined with the Ontario Woodlot Association, a nonprofit which is made up of a network of Ontarians with a vision to ensure the sustainability of Ontario's privately owned forests. So just a few housekeeping items. With the exception of the panelist, everyone else's video and microphones are off and muted. At the bottom of the screen, should be at the bottom of the screen or the top of the screen, you'll see a little box that says Q&A. You can click that box and submit questions throughout the presentation. And there's also a little thumbs up there, which enables you to like or upvote your favorite questions, and we'll prioritize asking those questions first. Lastly, this presentation is being recorded and it'll be shared for viewing later on the Ontario Woodlot Association YouTube account. So now I will hand it over to Jim Hendry to introduce today's speaker.
Thanks, Olivia. And very pleased to have you here today and looking forward to your presentation. So I have the pleasure of introducing Val. Val is currently with Forest Canada as the Director of Forest Restorations Program and formerly with the Nature Conservancy of Canada. And this is where Val honed her skills in grassland restoration management. Val has a degree in Restoration Ecology. Started her career with Nature Conservancy Authority in 2008, planting trees. Planting trees to increase forest interior habitat, windbreaks, new plantation blocks, and mainly in the municipalities of Northumberland and Clareton. Over the past, over a decade with Nature Conservancy of Canada, Val protected, augmented, and conserved tracts of forest adjacent to large partner blocks such as Northumberland County Forest and Ganaraska Forest. She was also responsible for habitat stewardship, community engagement, and partnership building with a focus on restoring grassland prairie communities in the Rice Lake Plains. Val led teams that turned remnant, degraded patches of tall grass, woodland, savanna, and prairie into flourishing. Along the way, she helped volunteers, students, community members explore, learn, and protect these amazing natural features and better understand the techniques used to restore the rare ecosystem of grassland habitat. With that, Val, the screen is all yours, and looking forward to you sharing your expertise with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jim, for your kind words, and thank you for everyone, especially Olivia, for setting this up. It's my pleasure to speak with you all today. I'll just share my screen and my presentation. Okay, is everybody seeing that okay?
We can see the full PowerPoint. I think once you click that, we should be all set. Yeah, we can see your slide now.
How's that? Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thank you again for the Ontario Woodlot Association for this opportunity. I love talking about grasslands, and I hope you enjoy this as well. Our mission, oh, I think that's in the way there. Our mission is working with partners in support of Ontario's grassland and the species that rely on them. So Grasslands Ontario is a division of Forest Canada, and we focus on restoring grassland habitat throughout the province of Ontario, not on a national scale as of yet. And it's our way of approaching more restoration more holistically throughout the province of Ontario. So I wanted to start off by telling you that there are many, many types of grasslands you may or may not be aware of. First of all, a meadow is typically results from disturbance. So usually when the soils have been disrupted, some species take advantage of that disturbance and move in. A meadow is not quite as stringent as a native tallgrass prairie, which I'll get into more details here shortly, in terms of they may have species that are not completely native to the region. Another form of grassland is pasture or hay, which is typically agriculturally driven in terms of species that is palatable for cattle and horses and so forth. There's another type called alvar, which is a rock outcrop type system. And you can find that in Carden and also in the Napanee Plains area, which I had also done some work on many, many years ago. It's very interesting habitat and often includes very rare species, including the loggerhead shrike is found in the Napanee alvar system. But my main focus on our work with Grasslands Ontario is restoring native tallgrass prairie. It is an extremely rare habitat, both provincially, nationally, and actually globally. So when I talk about tallgrass prairie communities, what I'm really talking about is 4 distinct community types, ecosystem types. One of them is called a sand barren. And a sand barren has little to no tree cover and actually not a lot of vegetation at all. However, there is some species that exist only in those sand barren type habitats. One of the interesting species you can find in those habitats is a ghost tiger beetle, which I've done some work on when I worked at the Nature Conservancy of Canada. It's a species at risk, and it's a fascinating little guy. If you want to learn more about that, I encourage you to look that species up. Tallgrass prairie is what we consider less than 10% tree cover. So that's the typical vast grasslands that you see in some parts of Ontario and more importantly in the prairie provinces west of us here in Ontario. And we also work on ecosystem types such as savanna. So a savanna is 10 to 25% tree cover, and a woodland is 25 to 60% tree cover. So all those different habitat types include species that can be found across all 4 of those habitat types. So for example, you may see big blue as a typical species. It could be found in the tallgrass prairie savanna and even in a woodland habitat. So it's very fascinating. However, these unique ecosystems often provide habitat for species at risk that rely on this type of cover. So looking at the photo to your right there, that was a project that I had worked on many years ago. And the top photo was in 2013, where we had burned this block several times and couldn't quite get the tree cover to what we wanted it to be. Again, we're looking for a woodland type tree cover. This was forest, so it was 100% tree cover. So we thinned it quite dramatically to take that canopy down to 60% or so, maybe a little bit less. And then you can see the results there, and we did a prescribed burn on that. So that was a very interesting one block of many blocks that we've done over the last 10 years to change that ecosystem type to be more suitable. When you're talking about woodlands, an interesting species that you can find in that type of habitat would be a whippoorwill. And you often hear them at night doing their famous call. So I mentioned briefly about the rarity of prairies. This is a map showing the historical tall grass prairie, savanna, and even woodland habitats that once took up a large portion of the province of Ontario. So you can see that how rare that is, that less than 1% of it is actually still in existence from its original extent. These existing remnants and how this was mapped historically was taken from information at the Natural Heritage Information Center. I used to work quite closely with Wazel Bukowski, who in fact took records from the original surveyors that came into Ontario, and where they recorded all the species that they found during the surveys. And this is how we gathered the information. Based on the species composition, we can then deduce where the original remnants existed. So grasslands are extremely complex, and they're typically maintained by fire. The picture central here to the presentation, that is my favorite picture, and why that is because we're burning Scotch pine. I really don't like that species at all. And then the photo to the right is a demonstration. It's a cool shot from a drone showing the complexities in the prescribed burning that we did. So the burn took place, as you can tell, on the top of that photo where the car has been parked. There was no burn in that area, and the other block on the bottom of that photo has never been burned ever at all. So it was just an interesting composition photo to show the vast stark difference between where areas were burned and where they're not, and how good we are at maintaining our burn break when we conduct prescribed burns. If you have a moment, I'd like to share a little video here, if I can get it to work. Or maybe I can do that at the end, if that's okay, Olivia. I can't seem to get it to, see, maybe it'll work.
Yeah, the end is okay as well, Val.
Okay, now. Oh. This is a project that I had quite a hand in.
We'll just need you to reshare to that screen where the video is playing, but we can hear the audio.
Oh, okay. I see. We have to reshare. Sorry about that. I had forgotten that it's by piece with the Zoom. So this is a project that I worked on many years ago. You'll see me running around in a little orange outfit during the burn process. Many months of preparation go into this prescribed burning, but it's a critical component of grassland restoration. So I'll just share. Can you see that now, Olivia?
Yeah, and it's full screen now. Looks good.
Great, thank you. Whoop. Gee, sorry, you guys. This is harder than it looks. Making wishes in the dark TV, so when it hit that in the meantime, I'm just dreaming of tearing you apart. I'm in the deep holes with the devil. No, the world can never get me on my level. I just gotta get you off the cage. I'm a young lover's rage. Gonna need a spark to ignite my soul. What you did.
to see. My songs know what you did in the dark. So light 'em up, 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 light 'em up, 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 light 'em up, up. I'm a fire. So light 'em up, 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 light 'em up, 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 light 'em up, up, up. I'm a fire. My songs know what you did.
I guess I would have to share again.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing that video as well, Val.
Oh, thank you. And my apologies for being not so quick on this technology piece. Is that fine there?
Yep, you're all good.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. So prescribed fire is how we maintain these ecosystems. They require very open habitats with a lot of sunlight reaching the ground for a lot of the plant species that depend on that much light cover. So that's just part of the best practices for grassland restoration. So Grasslands Ontario has a program called the Grassland Stewardship Initiative, and it was launched in 2018 in partnership with the Ministry of Natural Resources. This program we have is directly to support species at risk, particularly grassland birds such as bobolink, eastern meadowlark, and grasshopper sparrow. If you had read the recent report that was just released on the state of the birds, native grassland bird species are in steep decline. Almost 90% has been removed from the landscape due to the rarity of this habitat type. We work with many partners to get this good work on the ground, including municipalities, conservation authorities, stewardship groups, and NGOs such as Nature Conservancy of Canada, and of course with our private landowners. This program is voluntary for landowners to participate. We wish to promote greater public awareness and appreciation of grasslands. And on a side note, next year, the United Nations has announced that 2026 will be the year of the grassland. So there's going to be a lot of global focus on this rare habitat type. The purpose of our program is to not only create grasslands, but to enhance and maintain them. Often the enhancement and maintenance is the prescribed burning piece that is part of that ecosystem type. We develop partnerships with the agricultural community as well for those that wish to keep grasslands open on their farms, primarily with the focus of grassland bird habitat. And it's in direct support for the provincial hectarage target of 30,000 hectares of quality grasslands by 2036. As I mentioned, there are three categories: creation of a new grassland. So what that means is creating a grassland that perhaps isn't functioning very well. It isn't supporting our target species and their habitat requirements. Enhancement, like I said, to perhaps have a higher grass component or maybe a forb component, and then the maintenance to keep that area clear and open is generally part of those of our processes with the program. We have a minimum 4 hectare for size because that's the minimum amount that these species need in order to breed. Some of the, like in eastern meadowlark, for example, often requires larger habitat, larger tracts of grassland. However, I have seen them in recent years taking advantage of smaller grasslands because of the rarity of the ecosystem itself. We don't promote the conversion of existing natural ecosystems. In our milestones to date, we've had successfully completed 97 projects on 165 sites, totaling 1,300 hectares with 28 partners. So it is interesting to look at. Creation is often where we get the funding, typically from ECCC. They prefer to support the creation of grassland habitat, but other funding has supported the enhancement and maintenance as well. Here's a map showing the projects to date by year that we completed in those 5 years, and you can tell they're found all throughout southern Ontario. As part of the process, if you're interested in looking at a grassland project on your land, we have an application process that's available on the Grasslands Ontario website. And part of that process, myself and another team member review submitted project proposals, which include things like site suitability assessment, habitat quality assessments, and project costs and description of the activity. And we judge these applications based on their proximity to other GSI projects or existing grassland habitats. So, perhaps your grassland project is a little bit shy of the 4 hectares on your land, but your neighbor has a beautiful 50-hectare grassland. We would definitely be looking at the whole landscape level in ways to benefit these rare species and habitat types. It also comes down to the likelihood of the project achieving medium to high quality habitat. So if you are successful in your application, you enter into a 10-year agreement, which is saying that you'll keep that grassland maintained for the next 10 years. And we have a monitoring program that's conducted in years 1, 3, and 5. And part of that monitoring is looking at the site suitability. So it's taking a look at what type of vegetation exists on the grassland and looking at, the height of that grass, because that does make a difference to the birds, how many shrubs and trees are in that block, and number of bird species, and of course, breeding evidence. We also require soil sampling for greenhouse gases metrics, looking at organic carbon and bulk density. And you can see from the graph here showing that, through time, how the grasslands have improved, and that, the higher the grass component, the more successful it is, particularly when you're trying to recover species at risk habitat. And of course, the breeding evidence for the birds. I'm not sure if folks are familiar with the breeding evidence protocols that are out there, but basically we're looking at, if the birds are showing breeding evidence when there's a territorial defense, breeding calls, pairs that you see, they're building nests, incubation, leading behavior, and begging calls. So what that is you hear young chicks begging for food. And through time, even in over a couple of years, we have noted doing some analysis on our projects that in fact the species counts have increased even in a 3-year period through this work. We have a tremendous network with many professional organizations across the province that deliver the grassland program, including some of our PDAs, our planting delivery agents through our tree planting program have had a lot of interest in learning how to put grasslands out on the landscape. So it's our pleasure to support those folks that want to take part in our program. One of the things I must mention is, the rarity of the seed. So I've talked about how rare the habitat is. So you can imagine how rare the seed is. And that, seed is one of the greatest limiting factor to restoration as a whole, although it has improved greatly within the last 5 years, I would say. But when I first started doing this, it was extremely hard to get the seed, but it has improved through time. We do our best to communicate, like having the opportunity like you've given me today to talk about grasslands. Looking forward to getting into some more technical workshops and field tours and conferences. We also work hard to look at the mapping, not only the rare historical, and work with Tallgrass Ontario, but internally getting into some technical things like the Wallace ecological modeling, which I would need another hour to get into, and other savvy technology that's available these days to have a look at where these rare habitats are and the species that use them. We've had an overwhelming interest in our grassland program in the last few years, with over 256 interested landowners, the total about 3,600 hectares. And we are ready to deliver on these projects with the appropriate funding, which we are still in the process of seeking. That's all I had.
Okay, I guess basically I'd just like to thank all the participants who have joined us over the last 4 weeks. I hope we've brought you some interesting talks and that you've walked away with some, I wouldn't say new trivia, but with some greater knowledge of things going on in our area. And also the speakers, well thought out, well presented. Very, very happy with that. And to you, Olivia, for doing all the emceeing for the four webinars. And just thank you very much to everybody. If anybody has any suggestions for next year, we would gladly take your suggestions and see what we can do. And looking forward to another set next year and continuing on with a long-standing tradition.
See that, Jim, you have your hand raised there. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, actually, Dorothy touched on it at a last comment about if the audience has any suggestions. So I'm just reiterating what Dorothy said. We would really like to hear from you to make sure that we address the interest and the needs of our woodlot owners. So please forward them. Send it to your. So thanks again, and thank you, Olivia, for doing a great job in moderating the 4 sessions. Yeah, it's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jim. Yeah, just to echo that point there, if anyone does have any suggestions for future presentations, if you have Jim or Dorothy's contact information, you can send it to them. You can also reply to the reminder emails that you've received, and I'll get that response back. But I think we just have to say one more thank you, and that's to Dorothy, to Jim, and to Martin for organizing all of this. You guys put in a lot of work, and it's much appreciated.
Thanks, Olivia.
So I think, thanks so much, Val. And thank you again to all the speakers who have been a part of the series this year. I think we can tie things up now. Thank you again, everybody, and we hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.